I got a message, and Deacon has done it again. Now, I thought of a lot of songs, but I didn't think of that one, and I should have, because that's one of my wife's favorite songs. The message this morning, the title is Learning to Lean. We're going to start in Proverbs chapter 3, and we're just going to read 2 verses, the 5th and the 6th. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your path. We come this morning with a love for Christ and a love for his people. I thank God that he's allowed me to stand before you, and I want to get into this because the way it was brought to me is that when you start out as a child, I was looking at a friend of ours, we had twins not too long ago, and she posted a picture. And you know, when you're a child, you lean on your parents for pretty much everything you get. Everything you need, your parents supply. But as you get older, your parents, if they're doing a good job, your mother and father teach you to walk on your own, to get things for yourself. And before you leave that house, they should have taught you how to lean. You know, as we get older, we leave home, sometimes before we leave home, we start depending and leaning on our siblings. Your brother, your sister, but you know, brother and sister, they can only take so much. We who are leaning, sometimes they have to lean too, and we find out you're leaning up against somebody who needs to lean up against you. And you get weak. And as we go on through life, we may get a job, and we start leaning and depending on that job for what it can supply the financial problems. And, you know, the cars, and, you know, sometimes you lean on your mechanic because you don't know, not that you should know, because, you know, anyway, that's a whole different story. My father's a mechanic, and I know very little. But Nahum 1:7 says, be not wise in thine own eyes, fear the Lord, and depart from evil. Be not wise in your own eyes. If you're leaning and depending on the Lord, but see, it takes a while for us to get there. It's usually at least I was in my late 20s before I started to lean. I spent all the other time running. But I was leaning on my parents. Then I leaned on my siblings some. I leaned on friends, and then I got married and I leaned on my wife some. But you know, they're only human. They can only take so much. And when I began to understand the love of God, and when I got Christ in my life, when I first started out, I saw people who were leaning on the church. No, that ain't all right, because if you watch people when they're leaning on the church rules have more to do with them than the love of Christ. If you ain't wearing your best when you come to Sunday school, we may not want you in here when you come to church. We may put you way in the back. We may put you in the back where you can hear it, but they can't see you on TV because you ain't wearing what's appropriate. Because, you know, the church says women need to wear hats on certain Sundays, and they need to wear white because that's what the church says. Christ ain't never told you you had to do that. As long as you are leaning on with him with your heart, then you're good. But the church will separate you from Christ. You have to be real careful. You have to study to show yourself approved. Because when it comes to leaning, we get a good pastor. Oh, we ain't got to read, because pastor's going to tell everything I need to know. I'm going to lean on the pastor. I don't have to pray because I can always call a pastor and I can lean on him. Pastor will pray for me. But you know, pastor may not be available. Bell South ain't no more. AT&T comes and goes. You come down one of these little back roads, you may not have a signal. Pastor pastor may not be able to answer the line. But if you have a relationship with Christ, you can always lean on him. Because God will never fail you. When we're going through tough times in our lives, sometimes we fall. But God will allow us to lean on him till we get back to where we need to be. You know, there are times in all our lives where we feel down, feel like nobody loves us. We feel like our spouse don't understand. My husband, my wife, my girlfriend, my boyfriend, my very family, motherfucker, they don't understand. But I can always lean on Jesus. When you're talking about the word says, lean not unto thine own understanding. Well, how am I supposed to know, Pastor? He left you a roadmap. He left you instructions that you can read for yourself. You ain't got to worry about the New Living Translation. You ain't got to worry about any translation because you can speak directly to Christ. You can speak to God. You don't have to worry about your own. You know, sometimes we decide that it's above us to do what God asks us to do. Sometimes we decide, now, that would be better suited for a deacon to do. That would be better suited for assistant pastor, associate pastor ought to handle that. Pastor shouldn't be asking me. Pray about that. Let Christ talk to you. Pastor ain't got to we get so caught up in pastors, good pastors. We get so caught up in the church, a good church. What is a good church? We ought to be caught up in Jesus. We ought to be caught up in love. We ought to be caught. See, there are people all over this world, all over this, dare I say this city, this state, this county, who are looking for something to lean on. People will lean on alcohol. They will lean on drugs. They will lean on relationships that they shouldn't be leaning on. They are looking for somebody, for something to take away, to ease their troubled mind. You know something? If you get two objects, you lean one against the other. It depends on the strength of the one who's leaning. Have you ever seen a picture of the skywalk over the Grand Canyon? They got this little clear, looks like glass. I'm sure it's much stronger than glass, but it goes out, say 400 feet, and goes back around, comes back around, and people trust to walk on there while they're looking down like 4,000 feet to the bottom. Now, people will trust that, but they won't trust a God that they can feel. They won't trust a God that they can talk to. Where you are today, you got here because of prayers. You got here because of trust that your family, your mother, your father, your grandparents, or even your pastor. If your mother, your father didn't do it, then your pastor, somebody told you about Jesus. We are here today because somebody prayed, somebody trusted, somebody believed. Lord, save my seed. Lord, keep my family. Lord, it's you. See, we go all through looking and searching. I just want a good job. I just want a good job. But when you get a good job, I just want that job. I want the job that my supervisor got because they don't know what they're doing. I want the plant manager job. I want the president's job. God is looking for somebody that he can use. Not somebody who wants to be a leader. Somebody who wants to be made a leader. Christ will make you into what he needs you to be. All you have to be is a willing vessel. You have to be willing to lean not into your own understanding. You have to be willing to lean on him. You may not understand it. I've been in situations where things have happened I did not understand. But I asked God to lead me. I didn't ask God to lead me into where I want to go. Lead me into things that I already understand. I asked God to lead me. And where he leads, I will follow. It reminds me of the story I heard about this woman who was driving somewhere out in the west, northwest, and she got in a snowstorm. She was trying to head to her mother's house. She got in that snowstorm and it started blowing and she couldn't see anything. But after a while, a tractor trailer comes by and they had a little blade on the front, scraping away. And then she followed it for a while, and then she saw one of those little road machines with a blade on the front, and I'll follow it all the way to Denver. I'm going to make it this time. I can make it. I'm leaning and depending on. She pulled in behind. And the wind was blowing so, and the snow was falling so, and she couldn't see. After a while, she slowed down, and she almost stopped, and then she see it again, she catch up. And after a while, the man stopped and got out of the truck, walked back up to her. Man, where you trying to go? I'm trying to get to Denver. And if you just keep going, if I just keep going, I'm going to have this parking lot scraped after a while. He's scraping a parking lot. She thinks she's on the interstate. That's the way some of us are. We worried about trying to get somewhere when you don't know where you're going. We're following somebody. We leaning and depending, putting our trust in somebody. But your trust is put in the wrong person. And your trust should be in Christ. Psalms 71, 1 and 2. In thee, O Lord, I put my trust. I will never be put to confusion. Deliver me in thy righteousness and cause me to escape. Incline thine ear unto me and save me. The ultimate goal of a Christian is not to be a pastor, not to be a deacon, not to be a matron, not to be a missionary. It's to be saved, to get the word out and to be saved and to be an example that others may be saved. Leaning on Christ will save you. Leaning on the world will lose you. You're just like that woman out there in that snowstorm. She didn't know where she was going. She was just going. We're out here and we're walking. We're trying to get to heaven, but we ain't following directions to anybody. We're just walking, being confused. We aren't calling on somebody that we can really trust. We aren't calling on Christ. We're looking. We're looking for a church that I'll be proud to call my own. I'm looking for a church with a pastor that can hoop and entertain. I'm trying to get you saved. I'm trying to get you to heaven. I don't care if you don't like me. But I will tell you that Christ said, love ye one another as I have loved you. Love you one another. If one is without, then we all should be without. If one has plenty, we all should have plenty. I'm leaning and depending on a Savior. I'm leaning and depending on a God who came down, came through 40 generations just to save me. I'm leaning and depending on the blood. The blood that washes white as snow. There's nothing but the blood. Nothing else could save us. Nothing else could teach us. Nothing else could cause so much stir in a world like ours but the blood. You got people leaning on Saban. You got people leaning on Gus Malzahn, whoever over there in Auburn now. You got people leaning on Prime. We all want somebody that somebody looks up to. When Prime jumped out there, everybody jumped on Prime's side. Well, you know, that Colorado, they ain't won 2 games last year, but this year they got Prime. I'm sure they're going to win. They win it all. Let me tell you who's going to win it all. You want a winner? Lean and depend on my God. Lean and depend on my Savior, my Jesus. Jesus the Christ. Now, some of y'all out there don't know what I'm talking about. Some of y'all out there been following Jesus and thought it was Jesus. Some of y'all out there following Muhammad and thought it was God. Some of y'all been leaning on the wrong one because you had an understanding. Lord, if you just let me get this job, I'm going to follow you. And you got that job, you still ain't following. But you saw something look a little bit easier. Muhammad said that if you go to church every other day, you pray 3 times a week toward Butler. Well, I don't know what he said. I'm just, then you can be saved. Confucius said, if you go out in the rain, you get wet. A lot of people who look at a lot of so-called gods and follow them. Ooh, that is sun God. See how the sun's so pretty today? I'm sure I can ask for anything I want and it'll be given. Because the sun God Ra said so. Christ, God hung the sun up in the sky. Yet you looking for the sun to bless you. People even praying to Mary, Martha, Paul, Pastor. They can't save you. They cannot save you. Pastor can't save you. I don't care who the pastor is. It takes Jesus. It takes loving a God that loves you back. Not somebody who's going to tell you how long you can stay in the sun. You got to pray to the sun. Woo! There are times in my life where, like Jesus said, Lord, if it be thy will, take this cup from me. I don't want it now. I don't want this death in me. I don't want to go through this. But just as he said, not my will, but thy will be done in my life. Have you let Jesus into your life? Or are you leaning and depending on him? Have you given your family, your wife, your husband, your children, everything that you have back to him? He gave us everything that we have. We should be good stewards of that. And in doing that, you have to give it back to him. Lord, that car that had a flat last week, I had to buy a new tire for, it's yours. You got to take it back. Take it. You know, after that, I heard, I will since you buy tires. Because your driving costs it. Woo! You know, it's tough, but it's right. Sometimes you don't like the answer. People say that God won't talk to you. God won't answer prayer. If you don't want to know the answer, I wouldn't ask him. Because if you got a relationship with him, he'll let you know. He might send Deacon Fred over here to tell you, Pastor, God told me to tell you, you need to get off there and go ahead. But he had already told me that, but I warned. I received it now. I received it now. You should have received it the first time. Satan ain't going to tell you to do nothing nice. He ain't going to tell you to bless somebody. Have you ever heard of Satan blessing somebody? Through anybody? Bless somebody. Lean and depend on Christ. As I take my seat, I want you to know that God, Jesus is here. He came in with me. If y'all didn't bring him in the job, it ain't in the building. It ain't in these walls, the new part, but he ain't back there either. He's in here. Where 2 or 3 gather in my name, I'll be in the midst. Sometimes when one gather, and he in the midst. I'm not doing anything. Well, let me correct that. When I got my mind right, I ain't doing anything without praying first, without asking God about it first. Because I have made some horrible mistakes by doing that. And as you learn, you ought to do better. What kind of, you keep making the same mistake over and over. You're doing the same thing and think you're going to come up with a different outcome. You know what? Well, I thought this time you'd let me keep that money I stole. Yeah, really. Well, I ain't really stealing. She just gave me $400 too much change. And I just decided to keep it. What a blessing. I got my blessing for today and going straight to hell with it. Straight to hell. Because, you know, when that woman, and I have had circumstances where somebody gave me too much change. It was like $5 or $10, and I walked out the store and I looked at it, and I started to keep walking, but the Lord turned me right around and went back in there, and the lady said, what, too much change? I don't think I did that. Okay, now. So I walk out of there this time and coming back. She said, well, if you said so, I showed her the receipt. I said, I gave you a 10. I gave you a 20. Really? So I know what I had. I gave you a 10. Well, okay. You know, sometimes it's hard to bless somebody. It's hard to be a blessing to some folks. Some folks got an attitude where you don't want to bless them in the first place, but God tell you to go ahead and bless them. And then some people just don't want to be blessed. They act like they don't. Lean on Christ in those situations. What would Christ do? What would Christ do? All right, you may not take it, but it ain't mine. I'm going to leave it right here. Okay? She said, well, take it back and give it to the manager. I said, okay, but you know, when the manager find out you shorten your pill, she might have a problem. You right, huh? I'll take it. I'll take it. We have to be a blessing. We have to lean not into our own understanding, because my understanding is to take that money, it's a blessing. That ain't mine. That ain't God. Lean on Him. And if you get to a situation where you can't find it, between the pages in the book, and when you get that relationship with Him, you can always look to the hill from what's coming out here. Look to the hill. If you're learning how to lean, you want to get somebody who's bigger than you, who's stronger than you, and who you can always depend on. My daddy back here, he got me. I can lean on him. I can depend on him. Even when I can't depend, you ever been in a situation where you can't depend on yourself? Even when I can't depend on myself, I can always depend on Him.